Just a few years back, there was technology that came about that changed the world, first by giving people access to what we now call the internet. But it was what the companies then built on that technology that became many of the biggest changes in the way we did things in our lives, and also led to some of the biggest companies in the world. And it's my thought that sure, blockchain and the third generation blockchains are changing the world, but what blockchain is allowing and how it's allowing for new ideas and new tech that will create some of these largest innovative changes the world has ever seen. And truthfully, I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I did invite a very interesting project, and I invited the CEO and CTO, Leonard Kish, the CEO and co-founder of Ubase, and Josh Robinson, whose role is the CTO. And they're bringing us Cortex, which may be one of the next innovations of the blockchain revolution. And I asked them to come and join us and talk to us today about Cortex. And let me see if I can bring them on. All right, Leonard and Josh, the video feed cut out on Josh, but we can see you fine, Leonard.
Okay.
Do you hear me okay?
Hello.
Yep.
Perfect.
All good.
Josh, we can hear you. I have no idea why the video did this, but that's okay. It doesn't matter as long as we can hear you. Now,
I can see him all right. Okay.
oh, perfect. Okay, it's just on my end. So now, Cortex, could you tell the audience a little bit about Cortex? Most of the audience, they're crypto investors. Some have been around here 3 or 4 years, and some are brand new in crypto.
Yeah, so Cortex is, at its very basic level, the first iteration is going to be a note-taking application and a web development tool. The difference is it opens the door for just about anybody to create and post and interact in a completely distributed Web3 environment. So what does that mean? It means that, so if you create a web page and post it, both on your side, it's kind of an asset. There's a certain immutability to it. But also when you post it, it'll have a human readable domain name, like say leo.crtx. But it will that's also resolves to a crypto address. And so everything and every page and potentially every comment and everything you do online will eventually has the potential to be, to hold crypto assets and even become kind of a crypto asset. So it opens the door to intermingle crypto and data in a lot of new ways, I think, that I think right now are unexplored, so that, really everything on the web has crypto built into it. So you can receive NFTs, and NFTs are really just the beginning, we think, to a world where, most of what you do becomes kind of an asset and interacts in new ways. If you want to add, Josh.
Yeah, it's one of the core things that Cortex does is add some of that human readable names to different addresses and wallet spaces.
Now,
so
when you say human readable names, they're just like simple names that they can understand. Instead of having to understand this long address to something, they can have like cortex.ctxi or whatever, right? So something that's easily understood, right?
Yeah, and even more than just the domain part, it's the part after the slash too. So you can basically address different resources inside of a wallet by a human readable name. So you could do, slash, in our note-taking app, it might be to do, or, today slash, and then a date. I don't know if we'll give a demo later, but it kind of abstracts away some of that complexity of having all these different addresses and hashes, and still lets you easily use all these different cool technologies underneath.
So I guess the way I'm understanding that is like I could have a domain like it would be rain.crtx,
Uh-huh.
and then I could have after that send me money /send me money, and basically whatever it is, right? So anybody could easily create a wallet. They could get their own domain name because it's going to, like a new extension coming out. So they could get it, and then they could put a slash ME or something, and they could give that simple thing to people, and then that could be an address that not only has a web page on it, but also they could receive funds there. Am I understanding that correctly?
And even more than that, you might want to receive money for different things, right? So,
Okay.
you do a podcast, or vlog, whatever you want to call this. And so you might have different posts, and each one can receive funds directly to that post. So if someone likes an article, they could send either, financial tokens to it, or they could send a sentiment token that's a like or a thumbs up, and it's to that specific article in your wallet.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think the long term where we really want this to go is that all the things that we're used to doing online now, commenting and emojiing, or providing our input in a myriad of new ways, are going to be tokenized in some way. I mean, a lot of people are talking about that, but I think that perhaps we're one of the first that's actually laying out a way that can be done, and a way for just about anybody to be able to do it, because we are abstracting away a lot of this crypto complexity.
Now, what's funny is I often find it, even though I'm an analytical, I find it hard to absorb new technological shifts. For example, I missed out on DeFi because this whole broad thing of DeFi and what is it? Oh, it's decentralized finance. Took a little while to process in my brain, because it's hard to imagine where the future is going. Just like when the internet was first out, somebody said, hey, pretty soon you'll be able to connect to all your friends through this internet thing, and you'll be able to put your photos there. In fact, you'll probably stop journaling because you'll use this software called Facebook.com. It would totally, you wouldn't even be able to understand it, because it's hard to wrap our minds around new technology at first, but then it starts to make sense. And actually, when I first heard about your project a few weeks ago, I had to process on it and think, okay, wow, like, it's hard to get it till you see it, but I've been just kind of stepping through it in my mind and imagining what it could lead to, that it really started to make sense. And then that's when I asked if you could come on the show and explain it to the viewers more about what Cortex is about, because it started to click with me. Because at first my mind went to, there's a competitor that came out that kind of proved that there's some room in this space 2 years ago, called Unstoppable Domains, where you could own your own domain name that essentially nobody could take away from you. But really, they did piggyback just on what all the old technology did, but give you your own domain name that you're supposed to own, that nobody can take from you, which was cool and a cool idea. So at first, when I heard about your project, I thought of them, but then when you explained what you're doing on top of that, I thought, oh my gosh, what if this is the way technology is going to shift? And I struggled to wrap my mind around it at first, but as I processed on it, it started to make sense in some ways, that it might be the next stepping stone to a future that we can't even yet see. But the fact that you can have these different domains and subdomains, and you can receive money or you can receive likes and everything to them, what if this is the way that social media goes in general too? Interesting. I'd like to bring them on to talk more about the audience. So now there are competitors out there like Unstoppable Domains. Can you explain to the audience, I guess, what's different about Cortex?
I'll let Josh take that one as the DNS expert.
Yeah, so Unstoppable Domains is obviously, from the name, focused on the domain side of it. Cortex uses a similar project, so Butterfly Protocol, which I was part of developing, and fits into the Cortex side by design, and expands on it. So, finding a specific resource by a domain name is just part of the equation. Like we were saying earlier, you have the domain kind of on the left of the slash. Like you might have your google.com, and then you have, well, Google's probably not a good example because they don't use stuff after the slashes very much. But you might have your homepage.com/blog, right? And so the domain name kind of points to a person or an entity of some sort. And where we kind of expand on that is an entity doesn't just have one resource. Right? That's the reason why on web pages you have the domain and you have the path when you're going to the address in a browser. There's a lot more to it. So kind of what Cortex, the technology underneath, does is it kind of builds on that the base of domain names and allows each entity to have multiple resources. Meaning you might be a blog publisher who has a lot of different posts that you're posting about. Or in your Facebook example, you might have your person and you have a lot of different posts, a lot of different pictures, all sorts of different things that you're posting. And each of those needs a place to live and a way to access it. So we tie that all into the single domain using the butterfly protocol. And then Cortex has the pointers to, again, in a human readable way, to each of those individual resources. And it does it in a kind of a scoped way. So you can go photos and then got a specific photo. So you can kind of categorize and see, list of photos and see a specific one. And then behind the scenes, there's all sorts of crypto magic going on, creating messages and everything that you need to interact with the new web. But just like, no IP addresses, a normal user shouldn't have to worry about all those types of things. And that's kind of what Cortex does. And the Cortex app is probably more along the lines of a new browser type and way of interacting with things. Kind of a combination between a browser and wallet software. The kind of, in its initial version, it's a note-taking type of app. So, it uses a very common format called Markdown that can generate web pages that you can keep your own notes and publish them. But that, like you say, it can expand to a lot of different things in the future. And it's just kind of, growing as we're getting all these components together and building things up.
And it's a bit of a wiki-based as well, the interface. So a lot of the note-taking apps are going that direction, like Notion or Roam Research. A lot of those are kind of marked down and wikified note-taking applications so that they could also be project management tools. And we have some big crypto shops that are looking at using this as a decentralized project management tool as well. So and part of that, the reason that we can open up these new use cases as well is a good differentiator from a lot of other stuff out there is you don't want to have to create a new NFT or a new expensive transaction when you create something and post it. And so much of the stuff that we do, even though it's crypto enabled and signed, a lot of it happens off chain because you don't need to create an asset on chain when you do these kind of simple mechanisms that we're all used to doing. So we're building on Polygon as well so that even those things that happen on chain are also less expensive, but by and large, most of what you do, you'll be able to do like you currently use one of these applications. It'll just be decentralized and have all the benefits of crypto along with it.
Polygon makes perfect sense.
To add that.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, when talking about keeping things on chain or doing some things off chain, there are some things like your grocery list that you don't need global consensus on. So, that's why we do some aspects of it off chain, a lot of it off chain.
I've seen that a lot with companies balancing what goes on chain and what goes off chain. In normal, Polygon makes a lot of sense. Polygon's a little bit slow for a transaction, but in this particular case, it doesn't matter because it's also very inexpensive. It's just a little bit slow because they've gotten so much adoption, right? But it's still very much in a reasonable amount of money per transaction. It's still fractions of a penny in most cases. So I like that you're building on Polygon. I was thinking, so I don't even remember what the story was. I wish I could remember it with more clarity, but why couldn't your platform also work as kind of a GoFundMe? I was thinking there was some GoFundMe that happened like 4 months ago, but for some reason they fell on the wrong side of certain political narrative, and GoFundMe kicked them off, right?
Right.
And shut them down. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? GoFundMe is now political. Like, everything's getting political. Like, what happens if you're on the wrong side of that? And, a lot of times people are like, oh, well, that person's crazy. And sometimes they are crazy, but they always, when everything gets politicized, they go after the crazies first, and then they go after the normal people. So I like the idea of things going decentralized, that some politician or somebody kissing up to a politician, some business kissing up to a politician, doesn't get to decide whether they think your thing has merit or not. And so why couldn't this also be like a GoFundMe, right? Because it seems like in every aspect it could be.
Yeah, I mean, basically what Cortex is doing is it's giving people a blank piece of paper, similar to web pages back in the day, but it's allowing a lot of cool tools around it. So you can collaborate, you can receive tokens on it. So yeah, if you have a blank piece of paper, you can think of it, I mean, you can do anything with it. You can make it into a hat that you pass around, right? Yeah. And you can have content on there. So you can, like GoFundMe, you could write your story about what's going on, and yeah, it's a wallet address.
I might have to get the domain like GoFundMe.crtx. Somebody can totally get to it before me now that I said that.
Or Make It Rain.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one I want. MakeItRain.crtx. Absolutely. MakeItRain.com was taken for some reason. I have no idea why they would have taken it. So.
But yeah, it's a good point. Like, yeah, you could, these use cases that you that we're kind of used to, that we're kind of Web 2, and then pulling in the financial aspects underneath or from the side, or the people doing them in crypto now, kind of putting them on top. Because we're building crypto into the basis of everything, it opens the door to so many of those kinds of use cases that people will be able to build with it, and that's exactly what we want to see happen.
Because it seems like what you're giving people is what a true platform. And I remember in the 90s as .coms were taking off, and some U.S. politicians really facilitated by that, by giving them special privileges as long as they agreed to be a platform. Platform doesn't decide who gets to publish and who doesn't. And they agreed to that, and everything really fostered this amazing growth. They have since kind of started to decide, like a publisher, who gets to be on their thing and who doesn't, and whose political ideas they support and who they don't. And I remember when they went after Alex Jones, which Alex Jones always seems crazy to me, but they usually go after the crazy ones first, and then they start going after normal people, and it's, I don't know, kind of, who knows where that's going to go. But I don't like somebody at Google or somebody at YouTube getting to decide who gets to say what, who not, because what if they just disagree with you and so they shut you down? And so it seems like you're actually giving a true platform, and what's going to happen on this, it's hard to tell, because you'll have some innovative ideas come about on it, that you're just kind of giving them this idea and this ability to do things. But what really gets built on it will be fun to watch in the coming years. Like, what people do is they take your idea and they then put some things on it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. And that's what started to make sense to me over the last week. So I was really processing on what you've built or what you're building here.
Yeah.
And we're also trying to add more of that interactiveness to it. So, now if you go to a web page, you scan isolation besides all the ads on it. But if you go to a blog post on Cortex, one of our goals is to have the ability for you to build out kind of a trust network of people who you want to see what they have to say on the same topic. So you can go see anybody's content, of course, but when you go to it, you can see what people you trust say about that topic. So you can have an idea of, what, not, you don't need fact checkers, right? Because the fact is subjective sometimes.
Right. A fact checker means that their opinions get heavily slanted. Whatever their opinion is, their facts get biased by their opinions hugely. For whatever reason, most of the fact checkers now on Facebook and Google are highly political, and you don't necessarily trust them. So what you're saying is essentially you can add trusted sources, or almost like friends, right? So it's almost like they can add friends or people that they want to listen to, kind of like following them. And then they can see all the information that they're posting on their feed. So on a bigger context, this has some similarities to Facebook. but it's kind of more of a platform of people decide exactly what they're going to do with it.
That brings up kind of an important point, I think, too, is that everything is signed. And when you create a new domain, so everything you post will be signed. So when you create a new domain and all the Cortex file structures, the pages that go underneath that, those are all signed by that top domain as well. So when people create a new identity, you're always going to know who, maybe not their, in real life person who they are, but you're going to know the identity, their online identity actually was the source of this or posted this. So, I don't think it's a perfect answer to kind of like, where did this information originally come from? Because, anybody can. It does give a sense of what I think we get with NFTs, have a whole history and kind of a shared community. As these kinds of things evolve, when everything that's posted has kind of a shared history and can build a kind of shared community around it, we're going to see some really interesting effects. But at least you'll know, to some degree, who's behind something, or at least what identity is behind something.
That makes sense. Now, your project is going to have a token, correct?
That's right.
And do you have
CRTX?
Have you decided on a launch date for that? Is that determined or publicly announced?
It has not been publicly announced, but we're looking in late October.
Okay. So, and you'll be on Polygon, so that means you'll probably come through some launch pads, or you may be going to go directly to something like QuickSwap, or do you have that determined yet? Is it you probably?
We're looking at some launch pads, and we're like different launch structures, batch sales. So we'll probably go with one that features that.
Okay, and if somebody, say, wants to get their own domain name, like for me, if I want to run and make it Rainn.crtx before everyone else does, I have to then get some tokens, and then, or how does that process work?
Yes, you'd have to get some. So if it's after the public sale, then you get some tokens and use them on our website to claim your domain.
Okay, and then essentially I cash in some tokens to claim my domain.
That's right.
Makes sense. Do we roughly know what the cost is so I can plan it out for makeitrain.crtx? We'll
definitely work on reserving that for you. We're trying. It's going to fluctuate a little bit with the price of the token.
Okay.
But we're going to try and we're aiming to keep it around $100 or less at launch. Something reasonable.
And those are, once you own it, you keep it forever. So that's why it's a little bit higher than a regular domain name, but still accessible to regular people.
Yeah, you don't have to pay $15 a year or $60 a year. Like I just got CryptoRain.io, and $60 a year, and it's like forever, right? So it'll be nice that make it Rainn.crtx and have it for forever. I'd gladly pay $100 for that, absolutely. So for those
that
of you
actually is an NFT.
Yeah, and all of you in the audience, run out and hurry up and get like the major politicians and all the like Disney.crtx or whatever, right? And then if this goes bigger, you might get an offer from a big company saying, "Hey, can we just buy that from you? How much do you need? $1 million, $2 million? Sure, million's my number.
Yeah,
whatever."
We saw the beer.eth domain go for $100K a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they should have held on to it too.
So
man.
But I think what will be easier to use than .eth, at least near term.
And all of the domains that go along with this are NFTs, as Leonard keeps mentioning, but they follow the standard NFT format, so they can be in different wallets and marketplaces and everything. So if you do want to auction them off, there's plenty of platforms to do that.
Awesome. This is exciting stuff, and I appreciate you coming on speaking to the audience. I guess my internet's been having a little bit of trouble. Either that or Google's mad at me because I talked somewhat unfavorably about them. Not really. I mean, their initial thing was do no harm, and then they're kind of deciding who the winners and losers of any political discussion are. And even though I agree with them sometimes, I don't agree with them always, and I don't think it's their role to decide. And so, I have this fairness side of me that loves everything to be fair, and when it's unfair, it bothers the heck out of me. So their behavior is bothering me because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of like somebody stepping in as a referee on a political discussion who doesn't have the right to be a referee. I just want to actually hear what both sides have to say. So I don't want a ref deciding one side gets to talk and the other side doesn't get to talk, and so that's bothering me a bit. And I'm looking for solutions because I think these solutions will come, or like they kind of can make themselves irrelevant to the future when they do things like that, because free speech is what brings about innovation and even innovative ideas in general. And so I'm all about
Absolutely
a completely free speech and free and fair market. So
well, again, you see a lot of regimes that try to control free speech definitely struggle with innovation. They seem to go a little bit hand in
those
hand.
two absolutely go hand in hand. Yep. Absolutely. I don't know exactly why, but your background, now I love the psychology of human behavior, and one of the things I forgot to ask both Leonard and Josh is to share with us your background. Now, Leonard, I know your background, but I'd love it if you would tell the audience.
Yeah, so my research background and graduate school background is in neuroscience, and I used to study how properties of different regions of the brain changed when you took away different neurotransmitters and things like that. So I've always had this kind of, if you look at the brain as a distributed computer, which in many ways it is kind of a little bit both hierarchical and distributed, of course, but that's definitely led me to kind of a more distributed take on how things can be built or should be built, I think, or maybe more innovative ways on them. So I was fortunate to be able to go into software from that, and I've just, I think, taken that perspective along with me. And although I'm not the greatest coder at all, I've learned enough to be able to with guys that are like orders of magnitude more technical than I am in this field, like Josh. And I think we've been able to mind meld a little bit on why those things are important.
Yeah, and Josh, could you share with us your background?
Yeah, so I've been coding since I was about 15 when I found the Commodore 64 at a garage sale, and yeah, pretty much all you could do on it was code. So that's what I did, and been programming ever since then. I've worked at a lot of different startups, smaller companies, and some large Fortune 500 companies, maybe Fortune higher than that, and I forget what their ranks were, but yeah, a lot of different companies over the years. The last 6 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, I've been all in on crypto, and been developing on some different platforms. We started the underlying technology for Cortex quite a while ago. Yeah, coming out of both of us Leonard and I were working in the healthcare space, and the underlying technology really is useful for things like personal medical records and things like that. The industry isn't ready for that, but the technology was, which is what kind of led us to here with Cortex.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that the idea was, was that everybody should be able to own their, with healthcare, it's very personal, your medical records, and, as it is now, ever more so even, all of that information is just not distributed in the right way, but distributed across a lot of institutions that don't allow you to have access to it. The original idea was, how can you build a database that's decentralized around a person, so that wherever they went, they have access to their records, and no matter who that they met with, they could have input into those records, and have all the nice crypto features like signing, so that it was verifiable and had that it came from a true source and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, this is
exciting. And Cortex is not healthcare focused.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, we kind of figured out that everybody wanted this, so.
Yeah, but it should still be HIPAA compliant. So.
Yeah, so if you want to use it for healthcare and build something healthcare related, more than free to.
Exactly. You created a platform. What people build on top of it will be fun to see, because I think a lot of the use cases won't have even been thought up. Somebody might come up with it 6 months from now or a year from now, where this could go. That's exciting to me. It took me a little bit to wrap my mind around it. Really, I think one night, but my brain kind of goes off and process on things, and then being like 10 o'clock at night is like, oh my gosh, all the different use cases for this. Oh, wow. I wonder if this is one of those infrastructure things that then all these layers happen on top of it. And then 20 years later, we look back and say, of course that was going to happen, whereas right now it took me 2 weeks to wrap my mind around it. So,
it's a common thread.
Right, just like DeFi, it's a little bit slow to DeFi because it was hard to wrap my mind around and understand, other than, oh yeah, this idea of decentralized finance. But a lot of these innovations that are changing the world are a little bit hard to understand at first. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you joining us very much and sharing with the audience more about Cortex. So maybe in the coming month and a half, your token will be tradable, and at that point they could then get some tokens and purchase some domain names from the website itself. Is that a correct summary?
Yep.
Perfect. And it'll be running on Polygon, so if they have a MetaMask or Trust wallet, they can watch some instructional videos on how to connect that up to the Polygon network if they haven't already, and be able to buy it someplace there, possibly then be made available on QuickSwap or something after launch.
Yeah, we'll put it on a couple different exchanges. And yeah, it's getting a lot easier to add different networks to MetaMask.
Yeah.
So we might even just have a one-button link if things are going well. And yeah, so we're also going to have a bridge, so at least the token can be acquired on the Ethereum network.
Okay.
But yeah, it's still going to be a lot quicker and cheaper and everything on Polygon. So.
Yeah, that'll be great. I'm glad you're launching on Polygon. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I'm going to share with the audience my rap song that I play at the end to really reinforce the principles of crypto investing that helped me go from thousands to millions in the last number of years. Just really in the last 3. The first year was spent making all the mistakes that we often make when we're new in crypto. It was the next 3 years where I was making a lot better mistakes, or a lot less and a lot better choices. Not so much mistakes anymore. So and share with them that rap song. Thank you.
Came into the space chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you're good. Was taught to buy when it was boring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I missed. Cause I always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge to gain. Show sticking at this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. In 2 years time the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.